Carol, welcome back to TCM.
Thank
So great
you.
to be with you
Thank
on
you, Dave.
Thanksgiving, and happy Thanksgiving again.
Happy Thanksgiving, dear.
So the next film that we're going to talk about, followed by a terrific Carol Burnett Show musical spoof, is Top Hat from 1935. And I am such a Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers fan, particularly the ones that were directed by Mark Sandrich. He did so many like this one. What about Fred and Ginger do you love so much?
They're dancing and they're singing.
That's right.
You know, he sang like he danced. It had such rhythm. You know, it wasn't what one would call a really trained voice.
Right.
But I always loved to hear him sing. And of course, she could do everything. I loved the joke about how she could dance backwards and in heels.
Right.
You know.
She had no trouble keeping up with him. There's such an elegance and a grace to both of them.
Yeah.
And that's on full display in this movie. This was the fourth of the 10 movies that
Was it the fourth?
Fred and Ginger did together. A lot of people say this is the best one. Are you of that mind? You think this is one of the better Fred and Ginger films?
Well, if somebody would say what's the one that you remember the most, I would say Top Hat.
Yeah, Swing Time for me as well. And similar to the Shirley Temple spoof that we just showed, your hi-hat spoof is a spoof of kind of Fred and Ginger
The
writ
genre.
large.
Boy meets girl, they have a problem.
Yes.
They finally get back together. And it's a big musical numbers, you know.
Right. That definitely is a recurring theme in these Fred and Ginger movies, is that she's at first somewhat annoyed by him.
Yeah.
And he has to win her over. And
Exactly.
sometimes it takes a few minutes, sometimes it takes the whole movie. There's usually some mistaken identity at
Yeah.
play, and that's what's going on here. So in this one, she meets him, she thinks that he's married, she has to learn the truth that he's actually someone else. And that's the beauty of this movie, is that the whole way through you're waiting for the aha moment.
Will you please stop annoying me?
But you've been mistaken about me.
Top Hat was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. It had 4 nominations, and one of its other nominations was for the song Cheek to Cheek, which is so appropriate. I mean, it really is one of the classic Fred and Ginger moments with that very famous ostrich feather
Right.
dress.
Yeah.
Do you like watching that number?
I love seeing him avoid the feathers.
Apparently, he hated those feathers
That's what I heard.
and wrote like his own
Yeah.
parody lyric about how much he hated the feathers. And I think he even called Ginger Rogers feathers for years later.
That's funny.
We should also mention to people that Lucille Ball is actually in Top Hat, uncredited as a flower clerk. So it's fun to see how different people will pop up,
Exactly, yeah.
you know, before they were stars, as it were.
Yeah, and even when she was a star at MGM, nobody knew she could be funny
That's right.
until I Love Lucy.
I also want to ask you about Helen Broderick, because she's such a great comedic actress in this film.
Vicky nailed her.
Yes, she
Vicky
did.
and of course Roddy doing Edward Everhart. He and Vicky had this wonderful moment together.
Well, that's really interesting, because what you see in a lot of these Fred and Ginger movies is this kind of quasi-stock company that they
Yeah.
have. Eric Blore,
Yeah.
Edward Everett Horton, Eric Rhodes,
Yeah.
Helen Broderick,
Yeah.
and you have that on your
With our show.
So that's
Yeah.
really a great
and,
fit.
and Ken Berry and Roddy were on our show quite often. They were 2 of my favorite guests.
Well, why not? They're
Hello.
both so talented.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to spoof these movies?
Well, I loved it. And Ken Berry was one of my favorite people in the world. As a person, as a talent, I often think that had he been born earlier, he would have been an MGM star in
Absolutely
musicals.
would have.
Because Fred Astaire, when he does Fred, he's brilliant. But for me, he was kind of a cross between Donald O'Connor and Gene Kelly, because he could be sexy and he could be very funny.
Yep.
And boy, could he dance
Yeah.
and sing. And such a sweet man.
And it's fun for people of my generation who were introduced to Ken Berry because of Mama's Family,
Oh, really?
then to see all of these other skills that he had.
Wasn't it F Troop that he was on?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they thought he was this bumbling kind of a. He said, I get the chance now to do what I do when I come on your show.
Wow.
Because we wanted him to sing and dance and be funny. And,
Yeah.
and he was all 3.
Huh. Well, let's watch this globe-trotting movie that takes place in London and Venice, and then we'll show your spoof afterwards. All right, here it is from 1935, directed by Mark Sandrich, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers in Top Hat. Well, I'm glad they got that mistaken identity plot figured out by the end, didn't they? Always nice to see Fred and Ginger get together.
Well, you know they're going to. It's
Right.
just when.
Right, the
you
fun
know.
is finding out when.
Yeah.
40 plus years after Top Hat came out, you all did Hi Hat
Mm-hmm.
on the Carol Burnett Show, and it's so much fun to watch. As you mentioned, it's not directly a spoof of Top Hat, it's a spoof of
It's
Fred and Ginger.
the
in
genre
general.
again.
Right,
I
yeah.
love that word genre. But
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Well, let's take a look at it. Here's Carol, along with Roddy McDowall and Ken Berry in Hi Hat. Well, Carol, well done on your version of Ginger. And you, courtesy of Bob Mackie, got to wear your own version of that
Right.
ostrich
of the-
feather dress, did you not?
Yes. The highlight for me was Ken doing that number where he puts on the neck brace and he's on the crutches and he's tapping and the way it was shot. And he really nailed Fred Astaire.
Well, my understanding is that Ken Berry idolized
He
Fred
did.
Astaire,
He
and it shows.
idolized him. I think Fred Astaire at one point had seen him do something and complimented him. you
Well,
know.
why not? I mean,
Yeah.
his dancing is stupendous. He's so charming.
Yeah.
He looks great.
He's handsome, he's
Yeah.
funny, he's everything. And then, of course, as I said, Roddy and Vicky, I mean, she's in her 20s, you know, for goodness sake. And without doing any age makeup, she became that age because she was then married to Roddy, who was playing Edward Horton. And, of course, Tim going crazy.
So funny.
214.
It must have been fun to see what the writers came up with every
Well,
week.
and they won an Emmy for this. The writers did.
Did
yeah.
they?
Yeah.
Also, the spoof of cheek to cheek, there's nose to nose,
Nose to nose,
tooth to
tooth to tooth. That was a hard one so that we didn't knock ourselves out.
I'm sure, right.
You know,
right.
could have broken our two front teeth.
Well, I did notice at one point, I think it was you who kind of quasi turned your back to the camera, maybe because Tim was going to make
I
you
think
break.
that Tim was on a roll, you know, something that hadn't been written.
And then there's a very smart moment where you have Ken kind of dancing up the side of the wall, and that's the homage to
Exactly.
Royal Wedding.
Yeah.
So did Ken feel particularly proud of himself after that?
Kenny would never admit that he was any good. He was so modest about his talent. You know, if you complimented him, he was uneasy. He just didn't like to hear it. So, but I'm sure he had to be because he was just so brilliant in this, you know, and he loved that number.
You can tell. Okay, Carol, will you stick around for one more movie tonight?
I certainly will. You can't get rid of me.
Good. Well, please stay with us because coming up next, Carol and I will introduce Showboat, followed by her spoof Riverboat. Don't go anywhere.
Next on TCM, Showboat, then Kiss Me Kate, and later, Lovely to Look At. TCM is picture perfect tonight.